Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Triple N Media. I am Dr. Nik Nikam. This is COVID World News, a special presentation on safety guidelines for businesses. So you say you're ready to open for business? Not so soon. You better watch this video before you open for business, and please do share it with your other business colleagues so that your workplace is as safe as it can be in terms of protecting your employees and your customers. How safe is your workplace? What measures are you following to ensure safety to your employees and to your customers? How well are you prepared to handle an infected person? What about your customers and people who visit your places? Do you have guidelines for them? Do you have directions for those people? We're going to explore all these things and much more. Long before the coronavirus pandemic took its upswing in the country and around the world, there have been businesses such as retail industries, grocery stores, delivery services, online services who have been employing hundreds of thousands of people without significant outbreak of coronavirus epidemic in their workplaces. So they must be doing something good, and we can learn a great deal of lessons from these institutions when we are ready to open for business so that we minimize the risk of someone getting infected at our workplace and minimize the risk of an employee spreading the virus to fellow employees and customers. When you are ready for business to be opened, you need to know a lot of things. Who is likely to spread the coronavirus infection? We're going to cover this in detail. Who is likely to get coronavirus infection? How do you protect every employee? How do you protect people visiting your business places? All these things will be answered in this presentation. And most importantly, how do you protect your workplace? We are talking about environmental concerns. It is not just vacuuming the carpet, it is a lot more. The first place to start would be the CDC Guidelines for businesses. CDC is constantly updating the information on guidelines for small and large businesses as far as employee and customer safety are concerned, including the environmental concerns which I just mentioned. And here is the link to the CDC website. I would suggest you bookmark this and visit this place often to get yourself updated on the latest guidelines for dealing with coronavirus pandemic as you begin to open your businesses. Just a little bit of basic medical science to understand how a person could be a potential candidate for either getting the infection or spreading the virus. Let us look at this illustrative graph. This is for illustration purpose only. Once we are exposed to a virus, over a period of 1 to 2 weeks, the virus multiplies in the body and eventually the patients become symptomatic. And it is during this period when they are most likely to spread the infection to other people, which forms the foundation for asking people to quarantine themselves for a minimum of 2 weeks from the time they have been exposed to the virus. At the same time, by about the beginning of the first week, the body starts to produce antibodies, namely IgM and IgG. The IgM is the immediate non-specific antibody to fight against the virus, whereas the IgG is the long-term antibody to give you long-term protection against the virus. As these antibodies rise, you can see their titers go up, their levels go up. So there is a time frame when the person may have these antibodies circulating in the blood, at the same time have an active virus infection going on. That's an important point to keep in mind, because when we decide to choose a particular test to see if someone is infected, we need to have a knowledge of what is the most appropriate test to do at workplaces to determine who is most likely to spread the viral infection to other employees and to other people like your customers and service delivery people. Here is a chart which was conducted in a real situation. They looked at by doing a RNA test which basically detects the presence of the virus, which was found in 67% of the patients during the first week and 54% of the people who were exposed to the virus during the second week. By about 2 weeks, 45% of the people still had active virus. Whereas the antibodies come a little later. The IgM begins in the first week and the IgG reaches a peak by the antibodies are fully developed in people who are exposed to the virus, whether they have symptoms or not, by the end of 2 weeks, and it may take much longer to reach these levels. Keeping these facts in mind, if you are the owner of a small business or a large business, if you are the supervisor in your department, what is the right test to do? As a supervisor, as an employee, you are most interested in trying to find out who is the person who is most likely to spread the infection. It is the person who has the active virus who is most likely to spread the infection. So you want to consider a test that detects the virus, that is the RNA test. Whereas the antibody test just tell you this person has been exposed to the infection. We don't know for how long this person has been exposed to the infection. It just says they may be protected against a second episode of a coronavirus infection. I said they may be protected against, because that's what the World Health Organization came up last Friday with their standing on people with antibodies. There are a lot of people who are walking around with antibodies to the virus, but that doesn't necessarily mean they are fully protected against another episode infection with coronavirus. Now we have two different kinds of tests. One is the RNA-based test, which detects the presence of virus. The second is the one which detects the antibodies in the body. As far as a business owner or a supervisor, you are more interested in trying to find out who is most likely to spread the virus. So we want to consider a test that looks for the presence of the virus in the person. So how do we approach this from a practical standpoint? In fact, most businesses employ these simple techniques. Every morning you don't report to your desk. You report to your supervisor. You fill out a chart which asks for the routine symptoms like fever, cough, shortness of breath. After you complete the questionnaire, they check your temperature. If everything looks okay, then you report to your desk. If someone fails the screening tests, and if someone has a temperature, then you go to the next step, and that is you do the RNA test to detect the virus. If the test is negative, that person can return to work, but still you need to follow these people more closely, because if they are having symptoms, chances are they can turn positive a few days later. If the viral test is positive, then they need to be quarantined for minimum of 2 weeks. And we also need to track all those workers who have been exposed to this person and test them for any presence of the virus. We also want to make sure their workplace, the environment is completely disinfected, so that there's very little chance of this virus spreading to the co-workers. How do we protect people at work? Now it is going to be almost standard that everyone would be expected to wear masks. Many businesses have introduced plastic dividers between the customers and the staff. Make sure people who visit your businesses also wear masks. Wash your hands with soap and water. Have self-dispensing hand sanitizers and following physical distance, just as we have been doing during this past 4 weeks of quarantine. The same principles need to be followed for several weeks more so that we completely minimize the spread of the coronavirus at our workplace and in the community. How do we protect at workplaces? Avoid business travel, resort to video conferencing. 1/3 of the people can do telework. Have more than one shift so that people can spread out at the workplace. Self-dispensing hand sanitizers. And also routine environmental disinfection. We don't consider this as a priority during routine office hours, but during this time of the pandemic, the environment is as important as the people. We should minimize computer hopping. More help? There are several important points in the next several slides, which I'm going to just highlight some of them, but you can visit these links to learn more about these things. The best place to visit would be the CDC webpage for businesses. Should we wear masks? Yes, that's the recommendation from the CDC. Can we take employees' temperatures? Yes, if you have a suspicion, you can check employees' temperatures. How long should an employee be off work if they turn out to be positive? You can follow the guidelines from the CDC. How can we prevent the spread of germs at work? We already talked about that. And we also need to post a poster in the front of our businesses to provide guidelines for people visiting our business place. And when you talk to them on the phone, before you set up the appointments, make sure you have described to them what your guidelines are before they visit your place. Can you require an employee to go home if they have symptoms? Yes. Can an employee refuse to return to work because they feel the work environment is not conducive, is not protective enough? That depends upon your work arrangements and OSHA regulations. So there are a whole number of points covered here. You can pause the video and look through them. All these things may look like very overblown, but if you have an employee at your place, think of this. That employee could have spread the virus to several other employees and your visiting customers. And if several people in a small business get sick at the same time, guess what? The health inspectors are going to come and shut your business down. You don't want that to happen. So that's why it is important to pay attention to all these minute details so that your workplace is safe for your employees and for your customers. And most importantly, I want you to visit this CDC website, Interim Guidance for Businesses and Employers to Plan and Respond to the COVID-19 pandemic. And this is an important place to visit before you begin your business, and visit it as often as possible so that you maintain a safe working environment. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for watching this presentation. I am Dr. Nik Nikam, and please do subscribe to our YouTube channel and watch more than a dozen videos we have created in response to the coronavirus pandemic 2020. Please do subscribe to our YouTube channel.